Hey guys, tonight we drift all the way back to ancient Mesopotamia, where the land is hot, the rivers are muddy, and the bureaucrats are already mildly annoying. You're trudging through the dust of Sumer, somewhere around 3000 BCE. The air smells like wet clay and goat. In the distance you can hear the dull thunk of a stylus being jabbed into a tablet. You probably won't survive this society, not because of war or famine, but because you forgot to file your barley counts. Again. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere around the world, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You live in a mud brick house with a flat roof where your goats sometimes nap. You've got a few tools, a family, and not much else, except one major problem. The temple wants numbers, not just animals, but grain, dates, fish, even your neighbor's irrigation debts. You don't even know what a debt is yet, but the temple scribes do. That's where bureaucracy begins, temples acting like the first city halls. With more stuff came more squabbles, and someone had to write it all down. At first, people tried pictures, like a loaf of bread with a number beside it. But someone realized if they used wedge-shaped marks in soft clay, they could skip drawing the bread entirely. Voila, cuneiform. Now your job depends on scribes interpreting symbols like one sheep versus one goat that looked suspiciously like a sheep. There are no coins yet, just barley. Everything, your labor, your rent, your beer, is paid in grain. You'd think that would simplify things, but oh no. Imagine explaining to your landlord that your rent is late because the barley shipment was eaten by a rogue cow. He'll just send a tablet. And those tablets, they stack. Clay tablets about fish deliveries. Clay tablets about mud brick quotas. Clay tablets to remind someone they already got a tablet. Historians still argue whether these early scribes were administrators or passive-aggressive artists. Still, your life now runs on this early paperwork, and like any paper pusher in history, someone, probably a sleepy apprentice, once filed an entire month's worth of goat transactions upside down. That tablet's still in a museum. You wake up before the sun, half asleep, squinting at a temple official demanding your labor records. He's holding a clay tablet, of course, and it looks familiar. That's because it's the same one he gave you yesterday, only now it has 3 extra marks. That means your work quota mysteriously increased overnight. Welcome to the joys of redistribution economy, Sumer style. You don't own your labor. The temple does. It assigns tasks, digging canals, herding livestock, baking bread, and you earn food, clothing, and shelter. Kind of like a job, except there's no quitting, no weekend, and the HR department is literally a god. Temples ran everything like a business. Picture a massive ziggurat not only as a religious site, but as the city's most complicated spreadsheet. Inside, priests, accountants, warehouse managers. One guy records fish rations, another tallies bricks, and somewhere, probably bored out of his mind, a poor scribe scratches his stylus into wet clay, documenting your bread portion like it's the most thrilling story ever told. It isn't. Still, records were sacred. Clay was cheap, and every transaction, from oxen loans to fish deliveries, got logged. Some tablets were sealed with cylinder seals, which worked like ancient ID stamps. Picture rolling your signature across a squishy bar of soap. You'd better hope no one stole your seal. Identity theft in Sumer might have involved actual theft. of you. There's a lot of rules, like don't borrow a cow if you can't repay in calves, or if your irrigation ditch floods your neighbor's barley, pay him with your donkey. One scholar once joked that early Mesopotamian law was basically farmer Twitter, short, petty, and written in all caps. But there's a rhythm to it. You plant, you harvest, you report. The scribe nods, makes a wedge mark, and your year continues. Bureaucracy doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if your donkey wandered into a priest's herb garden. It certainly doesn't care if you forgot how many sacks of onions you owed. The tablet remembers. Still, despite the dryness of it all, this system holds the city together. Without these scribes, there would be chaos. Or worse, uncounted onions. Historians still debate whether this administrative system was efficient or just really enthusiastic about clay. Either way, it worked. At least until someone mixed up the symbol for sheep with the one for servant. Awkward. Now you're standing in line, again, outside the grain storehouse, tablet in hand. The sun's already hot, and the smell of barley dust hangs thick in the air. A man beside you sneezes into his elbow and mutters about how the last scribe gave him spoiled dates and no receipt. Typical. This is standard inventory day in Sumer. Everyone's grumbling. Everyone's hungry. And everyone's hoping their name, or rather their mark, hasn't been erased from the list. You step forward. A warehouse clerk, half asleep and chewing dried figs, glances at your clay tablet. He nods, gestures, and a younger assistant lugs out your rations. A basket of grain, maybe a few onions, a dried fish if you're lucky. Everything's tracked. If you drop that basket right now, the whole thing would have to be recorded as grain loss due to clumsiness. This isn't just food, it's accounting. Temples distributed resources like ancient supply chains, rations for workers, livestock for plowing, bricks for building. They even logged beer, which was so common it had its own symbol, a triangle inside a jar. Beer rations? Tracked. Bathroom breaks? Probably not. But don't quote us on that. You'd think they'd get creative with the records. Maybe doodle a goat. Maybe invent a bar chart. But nope. Just lines and wedges, each one carved into thick brown tablets that could double as roof tiles in a pinch. It gets weirder. Some temples began color-coding tablets or organizing them in rooms like a filing system, walls lined with clay documents. Imagine walking into a mud hut full of nothing but old goat receipts and thinking, ah yes, civilization. And bureaucracy wasn't just about stuff, it was about people. Officials tracked who worked where, for how long, and sometimes even noted who skipped temple duty. Utu failed to show up for canal dredging. That's on a 4,000-year-old HR complaint. Historians still argue whether these work logs served practical purposes or were mostly just ritual obedience. Maybe the gods needed your labor, or maybe someone just liked filing. Still, the real magic of this system was its memory. Clay lasted. Long after you're gone, your debts, your rations, your tiny dispute about a borrowed plow, they'll outlive you by millennia. One wrong stroke with a stylus, and you're remembered forever as that guy who owed 2 ducks. No pressure. It's dusk now, and you're headed toward the administrative quarter, a row of dusty rooms where the true power resides. The scribes. These aren't just guys who take notes. In Sumer, a good scribe is like a modern-day software engineer mixed with a priest, which means you'd better smile when they squint at your tablet. The air smells of oil lamps and drying clay. Inside, rows of men, mostly young, all squinting, are hunched over damp tablets. Styluses click softly like sleepy insects. You hear one mumble, "That's not a sheep symbol, that's a boat." And his neighbor sighs like it's the 15th time today. This is the scribal school, or eduba, literally tablet house. You remember it from childhood, endless hours of writing drills, copying the same line over and over. I will not misspell the word for ox. Except in cuneiform, that's about 20 wedges. Here, the best students graduate into temple service or palace work. The rest, well, someone still has to count reeds for the fishmongers. A senior scribe waves you over. He's got a tablet in one hand, a seal in the other. You explain your issue, a double-counted donkey loan. He nods solemnly, smears the wet clay, and redraws the record, almost like magic. Just like that, your debt disappears. You whisper a thank you to Enlil, the wind god, because bureaucracy has never felt so divine. The scribes don't just record, they calculate. They use base 60 math. That's right, the same number system that gave us 60 seconds in a minute, 360 degrees in a circle, and possibly your worst high school flashbacks. Historians still debate whether they invented it for astronomy or just to make tax math confusing. It's not all numbers, though. The scribes also keep calendars, track eclipses, measure land plots. Sometimes they write stories, epic tales of kings, gods, and monsters that sneak into the margins of ledgers like a bored accountant doodling dragons. Bureaucracy with flair. And there's gossip. Oh yes, ancient memos occasionally include personal notes. The gardener was lazy. The baker added too much water. One tablet even hints that someone's goat was cursed. You wonder if that counts as workplace harassment. It's quiet here, but full of power. These are the minds behind the paperwork. Without them, nothing moves. No barley, no bricks, no fish, and certainly no mercy for duplicate entries. You thank the scribe again, and as you step out into the cooler air, you realize you're finally balanced. For today, evening falls over the city of Ur, and the ziggurat's shadow stretches like a giant sundial. You find yourself near the temple courtyard, where priests, accountants, and labor managers cluster like gossiping birds. Somewhere, someone drops a tablet and curses softly, probably a record of goose feathers due for ceremonial robes. Tonight's meeting isn't for worship, it's for audits. Yep. Even in 2500 BCE, year-end reviews were a thing. The temple's chief administrator, draped in embroidered linen, calls out allocations. 3 goats for the harvest festival, 1 cart of barley to the palace kitchens, and who signed off on the 40 bricks that went missing last week. Everyone suddenly finds their sandals very interesting. You sit quietly, pretending to read your own tablet. You've learned by now, bureaucracy is equal parts math and theater. If you look confident enough, no one will double-check your inventory. Hopefully. The temple, after all, is the heart of state-level planning. From here, they decide where grain goes, who gets which oxen, and whether the canal cleaning crew gets extra beer. Spoiler, they never do. There's something oddly cozy about this system. It's frustrating, yes, but it works. The high priest acts as both CEO and spiritual advisor. The scribes, your lifeline, the runners, ancient office interns sweating under clay slates, even the gods are part of the workflow. The temple's ledgers often begin with phrases like, "to please Enlil," or "by Ishtar's blessing," as if divine approval were a line item. Historians still argue whether these spiritual add-ons were heartfelt or just clever budget padding. You remember last spring when a shipment of dried fish went missing. The temple blamed a minor demon. The scribes blamed miscounts. You're pretty sure someone just had a very salty feast. But tonight, the audit wraps up with a feast. For real this time. You're handed a bowl of lentil stew and a cup of that sweet, warm beer. Around you, the city breathes easier. The tablets have been checked. The numbers, mostly, add up. No curses issued today. One clerk leans over and tells you, "We're lucky." Back in Lagash, they use reed scrolls. Total chaos. You nod, pretending to care, but your mind is already drifting towards sleep. You watch a junior scribe chase after a runaway goat, stylus still in hand, and think, yeah, that about sums it up. It's late now. The moon hangs low above Ur's mud brick rooftops, and the streets have emptied to a soft hush. You walk home slowly, your feet aching from temple stairs, and your arms sore from carrying clay tablets all day. There's a small pouch of lentils on your belt, your bonus from the audit. It's not much, but in this world, every bean is a victory. As you pass the city's edge, you see a young boy scribbling on a flat bit of mud, imitating his father's ledger work. He's just drawing squiggles, probably a fish that looks like a bird, but give it 10 years, and he might be tracking oxen shipments too. That's how the system survives. Not with swords or speeches, but with styluses and soft hands that memorize symbols. You reach your modest house, 4 walls of sun-baked clay, 1 low wooden bench, and a mat rolled up for sleep. On a shelf sits your own growing stack of tablets. Some are from temple work, some personal, rent notes, a small debt log, even that half-finished poem about rain you swore you'd complete. This is your legacy. Not a grand statue, not a war story, but a well-kept column of numbers in cuneiform, carved carefully so that no fish goes uncounted and no reed mat is distributed twice. You lie down, letting the quiet fold over you like a thin blanket. And in the silence, you can almost hear the heartbeat of ancient bureaucracy, a system built not on glory, but on grain. Tomorrow will bring more records, more goats, more lost receipts. But for now, the ziggurat is dark. The scribes have gone home, and you've earned your rest. So here you are, somewhere in the heart of the world's first paperwork jungle, where every loaf, every laborer, and every loaf-loving god got logged into clay. The flickering torchlight, the soft click of styluses on wet earth. It's all part of a rhythm, a strange kind of lullaby that kept Sumerian life stitched together. Close your eyes now and imagine that cool mud under your fingertips, the low murmur of scribes humming while they work, the smell of oil lamps mixing with crushed grain. It's not glamorous, it's not heroic, but it is real and grounded and oddly comforting. Let the ledgers balance. Let the inventory sleep. Let the goats and the gods and the grumbling temple clerks drift into the darkness. You're no longer the one chasing quotas or correcting duck entries. You're simply here, resting under ancient stars, lulled by the quiet hum of the oldest office job on earth. Breathe deeply. Sink slowly. Let the weight of the day melt like clay in water. Sweet dreams.